Yo, yo, what's up, family? Coming through with a second study. I promised you guys I was working on a couple things, and this study I want to talk about is God a cosmic killjoy, family? No, God is not opposed to pleasure. He is opposed to pleasure that takes his place in our lives. God has eternal pleasures in store for us over what this dying world can offer. You can read about that in Psalm 16:11. The purpose of our lives is not pleasure, but rather Christ. Sometimes we may imagine God as a taskmaster or a dictator opposed to fun or pleasure. We may even envision him as a terrible judge with a gavel, readily pointing out faults and stifling at any sense of joy that we may have. We may see God as a cosmic killjoy. And family, what a sad and unbiblical picture of God that is. A cold, disagreeable sourpuss is not the God of the Bible, family. When we study the scriptures and come to understand, basically understand God's character, we see that he is not in any sense a cosmic killjoy, but in fact, he is one who restores us and gives us true joy, not some false sense of joy or happiness. Just because society deems and actively pleasurable, something the world may look at as being pleasurable, doesn't mean it's pleasing to God. And you can look at Galatians chapter 5, verses 19 through 21, and also Luke 15:11 through 17, Colossians 3, verses 5 through 10, and 1 Corinthians 6:12 through 17. Think about the prodigal son, family. False friends also, there's a lot of those, and they will leave us empty and longing. Jesus declares the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the fullest, to full. John 10:10. Life to the full does not sound like a gift from a killjoy. Throughout the Bible, we see depictions of what a life to the full life might look like. One great example is the life of Jesus himself, family. His first miracle was performed at the wedding feast in John 2. Children flocked to him, and we know that children will shun a grump in Mark 10:13 through 16. Also in Luke 7:34, Jesus gives a glimpse of his joy. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and you say he is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Jesus was not joyless. In fact, he was exhibiting too much joy as far as his critics were concerned. He participated in life and was not, ashamed. God himself takes pleasure in things. Zephaniah 3:17, for example, says that God delights in us and sings over us. God delights in his obedient children. Deuteronomy 30, verses 9. And he delights to show us mercy, family. Micah 7:18. God created the human body with a capacity to experience pleasure. God designed includes taste buds, enough flavorful food to satisfy any palate. God designed the human eye and enough colors to dazzle the mind. God designed the sexual organs, with their myriad of nerve endings so that the married couple can enjoy the pleasures of their love. In other words, family, pleasure was God's idea, and he is not against it as long as it's for him and his will. He is anything but a killjoy. The Old Testament is filled with instructions for celebrations and festivals. While the feasts served as an important reminders of God's faithfulness and provided glimpses of who the Messiah would be, they were also times of outright celebration. A cosmic killjoy would not institute such feast. Sometimes, as followers of Christ, we get the idea that being joyful means reading the Bible, meditating, or serving. So we end up thinking God isn't a killjoy per se, but maybe he expects us to have fun with things that aren't, really fun at all. This is wrong on two levels, family. Also, joy is not found in those activities exclusively. God created us to experience fellowship, recreation, and creativity. We were made to delight in being his children and using the skills he has given us and welcoming the pleasures he offers. Man's chief end is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. That is the biggest pleasure. However, we should be careful not to love pleasures for pleasure's sake. We must realize that God is opposed to certain types of pleasure. The sad truth is that we live in a fallen world, brothers and sisters, where God's best for us is often perverted. Many activities that society may deem pleasurable or, like I said earlier, are not pleasing to God. You can read about it in Galatians 5:19 through 21, again, Colossians 3:5 through 10, and 1 Corinthians 6:12 through 17. God does not condone promiscuous sex or drunkenness. For example, as a result, some call God a killjoy for that. However, these pleasures of the world are not in fact healthy for us or conducive to long-term joy. These are the pleasures of sin or of the flesh, or only for a season. And you can read about that in Hebrews 11:25. They do not last, family. They'll never last, even if it seems like it will last. There are false friends that quickly abandon us and leave us empty and longing. And I talked about that earlier. God is always going to expose this. So rather than killing our fun, God is protecting us and providing us what is truly best from us, whether that be keeping us away from such things or such people, so-called friends, so-called activities that's going to hinder us from being with him and experiencing true joy. In this way, he is much like an earthly parent, you could say, who provides boundaries for his children. A parent may be called a killjoy for limiting the amount of candy his or her children consume, but that boundary will ultimately, we know, benefit them. Also, it's important to keep in mind, family, that the purpose of our lives is not to be a joyride. Our lives have deeper meaning than that. We were created to delight in God. Psalms 37:4. We appreciate the good things he provides, but our focus is on the giver, not the gift. God is not a killjoy. He is the creator of joy, family. His spirit produces it in our own lives. Galatians 5:22. Because he is the source of real joy, any pursuit of pleasure outside or apart from God is idolatry. And we know how he feels about idolatry. For our own well-being, God opposes our grasping after the worldly stuff, the temporary joy that sin promises and produces. Something we must put aside instant gratification in order to invest in the greater joy of God's kingdom, family. You will be filled with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand. Psalms 16:11. Now I want to finish reading in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, the vanity of self-indulgence. If you come down to verse 11, then I consider all that my hands have done and the toil I have expended in doing it, and behold, all was vanity and striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. And if you come down to verse 13, then I saw that there was more gain in wisdom than in folly, and there is more gain in light than in darkness. The vanity of, living wisely, you don't want to be wise above your own eyes and think that God's not going to see that, and that he's not going to take care of that. Solomon, come down to verse 17. So I hated life, because what is done under the sun was grievance to me, for all is vanity and a striving after the wind. Come on down to verse 21 and 22. This is also vanity and a great evil. What have a man from all the toil and striving of his heart, with which he toils beneath the sun? For all his days are full of sorrow, and his work is a vexation. Even in the night his heart does not rest. This is also vanity. And if you come on down to 26, for to the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy. That's right, and joy. But to the sinner, he has given the business of gathering and collecting, only to give to one who pleases God. This is also vanity and striving after the wind. Family, the Lord wants us to experience true joy over the happiness, quote unquote, that this world will temporarily provide you. Remember, anything this world gives you is temporary, but what the Lord gives you is eternal and it is forever. Later.